This episode of Team Harrow is powered by Optimal Wellness Group. Personal plans for longevity and wellness start here. Go to optimalwellnessgroup.net and request your free consultation and save 10% with code Team Harrow. This is Team Harrow, where resilience meets leadership. I'm your host, Ben Harrow, combat veteran, special forces soldier, and entrepreneur. Each week, we dive into powerful stories from high performers who lead, adapt, and overcome. Let's get after it. 3, 2, 1, launch. Jeff.
Benny.
Thanks for making the trip down here, man. Glad to finally have you on here.
It's good to be here.
The date in itself, we'll talk about in a minute. Important, and it worked out for you coming down here. But you were one of the first people I thought of when I had created the idea of the podcast, and like, who do I know that have amazing stories of resilience and just leadership and success? And I also remembered you just being a leader on the lacrosse team, but also what you're doing now with Positivity Project, P2. And I was like, I know he'd love to come on here and talk about that. And besides just reconnecting as one of my best friends and us playing lacrosse together at West Point and being in the military together, us spending time in Minnesota, going through the bone lengthening process together, as Gina's sub-in at times. I thought you'd just be a great person to have on here and kind of talk about stuff, and especially, talk about Positivity Project and what you're doing. But I guess for starters, let's kind of jump into your kind of background. We met at West Point, you're a lacrosse player, and kind of talk about that. Let's start with talking about West Point, and specifically your time in the Army lacrosse team.
Yeah, so that was a incredible experience. And first off, thanks for having me here.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing with this podcast, and was really honored when you reached out early on when you first started this to invite me down. So it's awesome to be down here, see your new place, and hang with the family.
Of course, man.
Yeah. But with Army lacrosse, that was a tremendous experience. Similar to you, was recruited to play lacrosse there. So I don't know how much you knew about Army or Navy or any other places you were getting recruited to.
I went to Army and Navy lacrosse camp, and that was kind of it. So I was there for lacrosse, but in the background, plebe summer's going on. So you see kids marching around. You're like, this is pretty serious. There's something else here about it, right?
Exactly. And Coach Emmer saw me in high school at some state game, and he started recruiting me. And it wasn't really on my radar. This was 1998, 99. Started recruiting me, and I looked into it, and I said, wow, this is a pretty cool place. And then a mutual friend of ours, John Ryan, was a year ahead of me, and we knew each other because we competed against each other. And I went down for a visit, and the guys on the team were just great. They were really cool guys, and they felt really like men. They had their stuff together.
What was your recruiting trip like?
My recruiting trip was, pretty boring. We hung out.
That's why I asked, because I was going to share my...
Hung out in another plebe's room. Went out to try to have as much fun as you could as a plebe. It was a football weekend. Went to a football game, and that was really it. I think hung out with some of the firsties. They had their new cars.
Yeah.
They got their cow loan.
Big deal.
So I was like, these guys they got their stuff together. We went and played pool somewhere. But that was it. But the guys on the team were just good guys.
I think everyone I talk to has the most lackluster recruiting visit story to West Point whenever you ask them about it. And mine was, I came up, I stayed with Adam Hurley, and we went to a home football game. We then spent, because he was a plebe, so he's a freshman. So that night, Saturday night, big night, what do we do after the football game? We're hanging out at Truxton in the locker room. We play touch football outside all night under the lights and order pizza. And
Got some shades.
And I was like, this is actually the coolest. I was impressed by that, the brotherhood and kind of the feel of it. That's what really got me. I wasn't well, this sucks. Where are all the girls? Why aren't we drinking? But you realize that there's something more at school that's kind of bigger than yourself, right? And that was something that really was like a magnet. What drew me to the academy was that you're part of something bigger than yourself, and you feel that kind of brotherhood. And especially within the lacrosse world, that Army lacrosse brotherhood is super tight, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, and Truxton was a special place.
Yeah.
Not the lacrosse locker room anymore, but having that locker room over there, and just after practice, like you were one of the guys also, we'd stay after, lift after the lift, or go to the wall. We had that cement wall. I'd be on the wall for like an hour after practice almost every day, because I just wanted to get better, and it was fun to hang out with everyone.
Yeah. And that's it. We were talking about this yesterday too. The interesting thing about lacrosse is that it's really a sport. One of the reasons why I love it and loved it was it's a sport that it's really on you. Like how much you put into it, it's 100% on you. It's not mommy and daddy couldn't pay for ice time for me to get extra ice time and be a better skater. We're joking around like polo. Like if you play polo, you probably have to have money because you need to like get on a horse and practice polo. But lacrosse is just, you have a stick, you have a ball. You can go to work anywhere. You can go to work in a little room like this. You could go to work in a big field. You don't even necessarily need a goal to practice shooting on. At the end of the day, it's really what you put into it is what you get out. And that was one of the things that I loved about the game of lacrosse.
Same with me. I mean, I started playing in 8th grade, which is a little bit older than a lot of people. But I think for lacrosse, it's actually a little bit more normal than other sports.
I started in 7th grade, maybe like 6th or 7th grade. Yeah. I was playing hockey. That was like my thing. And then middle school was when I got into lacrosse.
Right.
Yeah.
And I had a great coach. He's still there. He just got his 500th win last season. He just started the program in 93 when he was like 23 years old. But he told us, if you want to be great, these are the things to do, and I will get you into college. You will play somewhere. It might not be your top choice, but you're going to play somewhere if you do these things. And number one was go to the wall. He said, when I was in high school, guys, I'd say, sorry, guys, I can't go to the lake today. I can't go swimming. I can't do whatever. Today's my day with the wall. And how true that was or not, that he didn't go to the lake every single time because that was his day with the wall or not, he told us that, and it resonated. And that was the stuff that we would do. We'd go to the wall nights, weekends, and just get better. Yeah. That's how you improve.
Absolutely. And I think it's something that, not to skip ahead, but, and we'll talk about P2 in a minute, but it's something that, it's a theme that goes through life, right? Mm-hmm. Of like what you do, it's very simple. It's very like the equation is very simple. If you put in the effort, you will get the result. It's just not everyone likes putting in the effort, right? It gets uncomfortable at times. Mm-hmm. And I think as in lacrosse, you learn that. In the military, you learn that. It's just a valuable lesson in life that, that's how to be successful, put in the work.
Absolutely. For me, it's that consistency over time. Yeah. You do it consistently over a long period of time, you're going to get better.
Yeah. So Army, West Point, lacrosse, after graduation, where do you end up?
So after graduation, end up at Fort Hood. I was an artillery officer, but I was in a Cav squadron. So I was a fire support officer in a Cav troop at Fort Hood.
King of battle.
That's right. Yeah. That's right. Big guns. Boom, boom.
And you did 2 deployments to Iraq?
2 deployments, yep. Okay. So my first deployment was in 2006. So I was a fire support officer, but became a fires platoon leader. So we had the fire support team and the mortar section. We were essentially another maneuver platoon in our troop. So we lived out in an operating, like a little outpost in Sabal Bor, which was about 5 miles west of Taji. Okay. So we were just in the middle of this city of about 80,000 people, mix of Sunni and Shia in the city, but surrounding the city was just about all Sunni. And then we bordered the Marines on Anbar province. So that was our, western limit.
So was that around the time when a lot of sectarian violence was going on, like Sunni versus Shia?
Yeah, the Golden Dome got blown up. Mm-hmm. The mosque in
Najif?
February.
Was that what that was?
No, Al-Askari.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's when February 2006, and that's when really the sectarian violence really started to, expand quite a bit. So we were right in the middle of that. And Sabal Bor was mix of Sunni and Shia. It was about 50-50. And like I said, the surrounding was all Sunni. So by about August, really October was a really tough month there.
Yeah.
But by about August, there was just mortars coming in every day from the surrounding countryside into the Shia neighborhoods. And then in the Shia neighborhoods, Jay Shalmeti started to come in. And then, it was just essentially ethnic cleansing of these neighborhoods. And it was pretty wild.
Yeah.
It was pretty wild to experience.
When I got to Iraq in 2007, the end of your trip, because I think we kind of overlapped a little bit. We were talking about our deployment schedule before. It was hot and heavy sectarian violence. I was in Balad, which was a Shia city surrounded by a bunch of Sunni. And obviously it'd be like every night, some Sunnis would somehow kidnap a couple of Shia, torture them, kill them, leave them on the side of the road. The Shia would get all pissed off, and the Shia militias, like Jaish al-Mahdi mainly, would then kind of go to work and find some Sunnis to do the same exact thing, and it'd be like tick for tack, right?
Yeah, that was it. And fortunately for me, I had an incredible interpreter. He's a U.S. citizen now, but he's back over in Iraq, still working, doing some work for the UN. But I was 23 at the time. He was 21. And he was able to figure it out. He was able to figure out how to talk to like older Sunni sheikhs, how to talk to the kids from, kind of more the slums who were Shia. He understood, the people coming from, down in Baghdad as well. And he just understood the lay of the land. He was from a mixed tribe. Mm-hmm. He was Shia, but it was a mixed tribe. And he was incredible to have as an interpreter. And he was also ready just to go to work, and do the things that we need to do. Talk to people if we need to do raids, gather the intelligence. There's actually an ODA there also that we worked pretty closely with. And those guys, they taught me how to talk to people, how to build informants, how to do all that work. And this guy, the intel guy, just pretty much took me under his wing and showed me a lot of stuff. That was incredible.
We call it mapping the human terrain, right? And how important that is of understanding your operational environment, your situational environment, and the human terrain, right? And being able to talk to people. And I had a great experience with my interpreter too in Iraq. The first week he was like, listen, sir, I'm just going to let you know, I'm going to say this. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I work for you, but you're too nice to these people. I understand a big heart. You guys want to come here and do the right thing, but you're not seeing this world through an Iraqi lens. You're looking at it as an American. And when you come in here and want to pave a road and do this and do that and like hugs and kisses, they see that as weakness. They respect violence. They respect aggression. That's just how it is, good, bad, or indifferent. That's just how it is over here. And when you come in here, it's like, I hear them in Arabic talking about like, this is, they're going to take advantage of you. Right. And I was like, holy shit, I'm doing this all wrong, number one. And two, that totally changed my dynamic of like how to look at stuff, right? Of like, if I walk in here, I need to understand, like what your interpreter is saying. How do I look at this from a Shia solution or problem set? How do I look this at a Sunni solution or problem set, right? And being able to have the conversation with who may or may not be your enemy, or who may or may not be your ally, but understand like where they're coming from when they sit down with you to have tea, and then that way you can like build that relationship. Which, not to us be all over the place, but it's just a crazy time right now, and I think it would be remiss of us to not talk about what's going on in current events, especially since today is September 11th. Obviously a big day for America, big day for guys like yourself and I who were in the GWAT, who were at school when September 11th happened. We both joined the Army before 9/11, and to make it like full circle to where, unfortunately, Charlie Kirk was shot and killed. It's crazy to think that we've gone from one side of the spectrum of like America and ideals and patriotism and everything that we believed in to now it's almost like how we saw and experienced in Iraq, like that sectarian violence. We're not there. I don't think we're at that tipping point yet. Like we still have a way to go in terms of like violence and IEDs in the streets and kidnappings and retaliatory killings. But to shoot somebody down that you don't agree with, like it's definitely on that path. Right?
Yeah. I mean, it's terrible, what happened yesterday, and obviously 9/11, 24 years ago today. It's it's pretty crazy to think about how we grew up in the 80s and 90s compared to really the last 24 years. It's been, in my opinion, quite a bit different these last 24 years compared to the previous 18 or so years that we were growing up in.
Yeah.
And that's, a big reason why we wanted to start the Positivity Project. And it's about empowering America's youth to build positive relationships and become their best selves. And those relationships, I think, are incredibly important. Like, how do we bridge the gaps? How do we come across these party lines or whatever other lines there are to understand who people are and build relationships based on their character rather than what they look like, what their political affiliation is, their religion, anything else, but who they are as people, what their character is.
So how do you do that with Positivity Project? Like, let's talk about that, what that is.
Yeah, so what it is, it's a character education program. So we provide schools, pre-K to 12 schools, with the strategy, the resources, and the training to teach Positive Psychology's 24 character strengths. And Positive Psychology's 24 character strengths have a ton of research behind them. So a team of 40 PhDs over 3 years, they wanted to understand what is character and how does it manifest in our lives. And they found these 24 character strengths exist in all of us and that they have existed throughout history and in all cultures of the world. So these are things like integrity, gratitude, humility, perseverance, like on your t-shirt.
Rocking the shirt today.
That's right. Yeah. You're making it look good.
I fill it out.
You fill it out really well. Make it look good. But you're an incredible example of perseverance, so it's very fitting that I brought that shirt, for you and Peyton, because you are the exemplar of perseverance. And so what we want to do in school is we want to show kids on a consistent basis examples of those character strengths. So what is perseverance? What is gratitude? What is humility? What is humor? Humor is another character strength, right? That helps you get through tough times.
Yeah.
So these character strengths aren't about ignoring the negative. Optimism is one of the 24 character strengths, and optimism also isn't just about ignoring the negative, right? You understand that there's tough things that happen and you choose to look on the side that you can make things better or things will get better. But anyways, we understand that there are going to be inevitable adversities in life, and how do you get through them? And it's those character strengths and those relationships that help you get through those tough times.
Yeah.
And be more resilient.
Yeah. I love it. With optimism, I think of it as not just thinking like, oh, it's going to get easier. I say to myself to be optimistic, and it's something I say to myself a lot, is it's not going to get easier, but it's going to get better.
Yes.
And to realize that, right?
Yes.
That whatever I'm kind of going through, it won't get easier probably, but it's going to get better.
Right.
With a lot of things in life. I love it, man. I mean, I remember when we were talking about what P2 is, Positivity Project, and the idea behind it. I love it because I think the best way to, big picture, everyone wants to do some big picture thing of make society better, right? Make the world better. That's great. But how do you really do that? And I think you do that by affecting change at the very lowest level, which is with kids.
Yes.
And that's something I saw, and I had that idea after my experiences overseas and seeing what terror groups would do to kids, how the Taliban would take young kids and, basically keep them in a madrasa and just brainwash them and teach them about, you need to become a suicide bomber and kill yourself to kill the infidel and for you to go to heaven and to save your family. And I remember literally intercepting a 14-year-old suicide bomber. I was just telling Peyton about this. We stopped a suicide bomber that was your age. I was ready to go blow himself up and walk into a police station and do that. And talking to him and trying to understand his reasoning, you realize that he was totally brainwashed. And not at that moment, but soon thereafter, later on in life, I realized how do you really affect change at a massive level like that is you really do what the enemy's doing, but in a way that benefits to that's good. That benefits to your idea, right? You need to affect change at the lowest level with the kids. And instead of brainwashing them to go strap on a suicide vest and kill themselves, why don't we brainwash them or teach them ideals that create a better society?
Exactly.
How about that? You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's it. And obviously, all the academics are extremely important, right?
Yeah.
Math, English, like, you know, we're with your kids, they're getting ready for tests. They got math tests and all that. That's incredibly important. But also, what about teaching them about character?
Yeah.
And what it means to be a good person? Things like kindness, right? Creativity, curiosity, asking questions. Like, if you can develop that right alongside all the other important academic work, you're going to have a better country, a better society.
Absolutely.
You know?
And I think that goes back to like what we're seeing today of how divisive and aggressive we are to one another. Mm-hmm. You know, to think that someone's going to get shot down in college for having a debate, like that's where you're supposed to debate.
It is.
It should be an open playground of ideas and discussion, and not being slain for saying something that you disagree with. Right?
Exactly. No, that's exactly right. And, you know, one of the character strengths is open-mindedness, being able to entertain different ideas.
Yeah.
You know, and try those on and see what those ideas look like. Perspective is another one. Understanding other people's perspectives on the world. That not everyone's going to look at the world like you. That's very important, especially in this country, in a democracy in the United States that is multicultural, that is multi-ethnic, multiple religions. We need to understand and have that perspective and that open-mindedness.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, we were talking about it too. I think it also not just for students, but it's something, the idea of Positivity Project and what you guys do. Mm-hmm. I think it also works well with like young athletes. And I've talked about that a lot on here about like certain things that like I see today with athletes. My son being an athlete, my daughter I consider an athlete, even though she, you know, it's dance, but she's still athletic.
Absolutely.
There's certain things that you can instill in kids that will help them in like athletic endeavors, right? Perseverance, resiliency. Mm-hmm. The guy I had on here before, who's a hockey player that I knew, a guy named Sandy Cohen, and he runs Mental Edge Hockey. But it's really mental edge for like all athletes. And it's kind of same concept of like instill grittiness in a player. Like there's nothing better than having a gritty player. And you know this being a lacrosse player, right? Like the guys that were gritty, that were like hard nosed and would go in for any ground ball. Like I want him on my team like every day of the week, right? Like that's such an important trait.
Absolutely. Yeah. And how do you develop that?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'd love your opinion on how you develop it, you know, with your kids.
Yeah.
What do you do?
I think these character traits that we're talking about, they're all like muscles, and we're all born with them, like you said. So my assumption is, I guess, is right, since you said there's 40 like PhDs that prove this
over 3 years. Yep. And they wrote an 800-page book called Character Strengths and Virtues.
Yeah. I think that those character traits that are all like muscles, right? And you're born with it, but you have to work at them to get better at it. And I think as a parent, you're almost like a spotter or a workout partner for your kids to help train those certain character traits. Mm-hmm. And just like when we're in the gym working out and you have somebody spotting you or your workout partner, you don't want them going, all right, let's load it up with all these plates. You know, you're going to do it. You're going to do this bench press, right? That's not the way to work out. The way to work out is to encourage them to do it over time, to scale, maybe take a step back if you feel like it's too much, but you want to get stronger at that lift, that exercise. It's the same with those, I think those character traits. You don't want to go in and just throw out character traits every single day, or I'm going to teach you to be a better person today, 24/7 resilience. We're going in the ice bath. I'm going to fast you. All under darkness. Like, it's going to suck, but it's going to make you a better person. Like, no, that's too much, right? Mm-hmm. So I think as a parent, you need to do a good job of understanding like a workout partner, you know, like what we know from working out in the gym. There's a scale, there's a process to it, there's a plan, but you can't overdo it. And I think sometimes we've both seen it where parents will put too much pressure on their kids for dance or put too much pressure on their kids for sports, and they overdo it. And they're really overdoing those character traits that we're talking about that are so important that everyone has, that if you nurture them the right way, you're basically creating like a better human being.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, you hit on the key thing that we do in the Positivity Project, and this is what we talked about earlier with wall ball and lacrosse, which is consistency over time.
Yeah.
So we have an annual calendar laid out where we recommend when schools teach certain character strengths, and they teach all 24 over the course of the year, and they also talk about the importance of building positive relationships through those character strengths. So we have all that laid out, but then during the week, there's daily 10 to 15 minute lessons. So it might be gratitude week. You follow the model of you understand what the strength is, you engage with it through some type of activity, and then you reflect on what you've learned. And that's the consistency over time through the course of that week. So, if we're doing bravery week or perseverance week, day one might be a short video of you going through what you went through and exemplifying perseverance that we curate from YouTube, right? There's so much content out there today.
Yeah.
So you curate it, you find a 3 to 5 minute video, the teacher plays the video, and then that teacher now has questions to ask on the next slide. Where did you see perseverance in this video? How have you exemplified perseverance in your own life? Do you know anyone else who exemplifies perseverance? Then you have a classroom conversation around perseverance. Lesson's over. That's it. But then that lesson stays with you, where students are starting to identify those strengths in themselves, in other people, and then they build relationships based on that understanding of who the person is at their core, at their character.
And how long has P2 been around? Because I'm just curious of some of the success stories or things that you've seen that have been successful with the schools that you've worked with.
Yeah, it's been around 10 years now.
Okay.
So we started with one school in 2015 in upstate New York. And that was before we even existed as an organization. It was a total pilot. And the school, when Mike's my co-founder, when we went to go visit the school in November 2015, they told us this is the best way we've ever taught character, and you should bring this to schools across the country. So that's when we started the organization.
Yeah.
From there, it went from 1 to 33 to 188, and now we're at over 800 partner schools across the country.
Oh, wow.
What we've seen successful, in our partner schools where we've seen success is when they do it consistently, when they have a plan and it's mapped out. What's the plan to implement at the classroom level? What's the plan to implement school-wide? So there's signage, there's morning announcement scripts, there are family letters. We really encourage families to be part of this. We have P2 for families, so parents can do a weekly lesson on their own with their kids. We have like a mobile responsive website that allows parents to do this with their kids also. And then what's the training? And we've got both in-person training and on-demand training. So for teachers, it's all about having a very light lift, but something that's also engaging for kids. Because teachers are busy. They got so much on their plates. How do I fit more time in to do this thing? We make it very easy for them. The slides are laid out. There's almost no prep for these teachers other than a little bit of training at the beginning of the year to understand what is positive psychology, what are the character strengths, why is this important? And that's really it. So in terms of success, when teachers and schools do this consistently and when it's part of the entire school culture, then it's extremely successful.
I am a total believer in it, obviously for all the right reasons and the character traits and helping children and helping society at the end of the day. Where have you seen resistance to it, or have you at all?
Yeah, it's easier at the elementary school level.
Yeah.
And then it gets a little tougher at the middle school level and then tougher at the high school level. And that's really because of the schedule of the day, right? So elementary school, nationwide, public, private, charter school, it's very similar.
Yeah.
There's typically like a morning meeting or something like that at the beginning of the school day where schools do it. Middle school can be a little bit trickier. You might have a homeroom. Some middle schools rotated around to different teams. I don't know if your middle school had teams where there's like a team of teachers that have English, math,
we did
social studies, science, right?
It was an A team and a B team, actually. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's a pretty similar model. And so some schools will rotate it around. So one week it's the English teacher, the next week social studies, et cetera. But then at the high school level, it's much more of a student-led initiative where it's successful, because trying to teach this in homeroom or in a flex period or something like that just becomes a little bit trickier at that level. But when it's student-led, the students really they get behind this. They want to build positive relationships. They want to exemplify these character strengths. We've got a high school up in Potsdam, New York, up in the North Country near the Canadian border.
Let's be honest, anything above Westchester is Canada. It's that's Southern Ontario.
That's how I grew up then. Yeah. A lot of maple syrup.
Yeah, a lot of flannel.
That's right. So, but they started a food bank. And so they were providing food for any students that needed it. And then they moved on to like an elderly center, and they started providing food, clothing, whatever they needed. They ran it themselves. They started their own nonprofit.
The students on their own did that?
On their own. Yep. They had, some educators, to help them.
Like
coaches.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like coaches to help facilitate it. But it's ongoing. They're still doing this up there, and it's been ongoing now for, I think, 5 years.
Wow.
So these are things that they want to do, and then they use the Positivity Project kind of as that vehicle to do that.
That's awesome. Both of us being grads at West Point, and at school you learn a lot of character traits of leadership, integrity, obviously duty, honor, country is the three main principles of West Point. Did you and Mike was that kind of an impetus just because you guys are also West Pointers and trying to create like a system that also instills these values, like what you learned at West Point and now trying to implement that into younger kids?
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it. So Mike, so after Mike's third deployment, he went back to study positive psychology under Dr. Chris Peterson, who was one of the founders of the field. And he was the co-author, kind of leading that research on the 24 character strengths. So Mike studied under him, and then he went back to teach leadership and psychology at West Point. He was in the BSNL department. And so he talked about character quite a bit, and he had that background through studying under Chris Peterson. And at the time, we just started a Facebook page talking about character and relationships, because really we were looking at the direction the country was going, and what we're talking about today, 10 years later. We were looking at the direction the country was going, and we thought that by consistently focusing on character and relationships, it'd probably be good. And that's when a school reached out based on the Facebook page and said, we need this at our school. And we said, okay, great. It's just a Facebook page. We were thinking about working with teams and things like that. And the teacher said, I don't care. We need this. And that's when, it all took off.
I think some of the best businesses and best business models are created by solving a problem. And I think it's what's the problem to solve? Here, obviously, it's seeing that society probably needs this, right? In terms of giving it a little boost in the right direction for the right reasons with like the right character traits. Yeah.
And when you dig into the research also, obviously we've got all the things that we see and we feel on a daily basis. But loneliness, we talk about the loneliness epidemic, and a lot of people talk about it post-COVID, but this has been building for decades. Like we in our training, we show all the research. This goes back decades to the 80s, right? Probably even before that, where people just became lonelier and lonelier over the years, and we became more separated, less community oriented. So if that's the case, and now you throw in cell phones and social media and all the other stuff where you can just be tied into your little world and not have to interact with anyone else physically, or, have those conversations and have those tough conversations and build those relationships. So that's the reason why our mission is to empower America's youth to build positive relationships and become their best selves.
Yeah, I feel like social media creates a facade of community. It's not a real community. Like if you were to describe to me, like, Jeff, tell me what a community is, you would probably tell me about some sort of system of security, some sort of system of like governance, coming together, maybe like a tribe, protecting each other. When you talk about a community on social media, it's like totally different. It's a bunch, it's 17 different keyboard warriors all telling each other to go fuck themselves because they disagree with like the last social media post.
Right. And that's not in person. Like, are you going to do that in person? Maybe, but it's a little different to be saying those things to someone's face.
Absolutely.
And also it's just there in writing, and then, you know, you go tit for tat. But when you're actually in person, you're building those relationships, it's quite a bit different.
I did an interview for Business Insider. I think I sent it to you. It was talking about, you know, what is Special Forces, and then we talk about obviously my story as well. And humbly, I think it came off really well. I was glad to represent the Special Forces Regiment like in a very positive light and explain like what we do to a point. And so I watched it, and then I went back later, or it popped up in my feed. And I was like, I wonder, just curious, like, how many views did it get? You know, like anyone, like, how's it doing?
Right.
And then I was like, wow, there's like 300 comments. And I was like, dare I go through the comment section? And one of the, you know, obviously 90% of the comments, 95% of the comments were like, thank you for your service, amazing story. What you would hope or expect.
Right.
The other 5%, 3%, whatever you want to call it, was like, what the fuck is this guy talking about, deploying without interpreters? You know, like, that's bullshit. You don't do that. Or like, way to lose your legs for like oil. You know, like, all right, and me being me, I was like, I used humor. Like, yes, that's ridiculous. I know I didn't lose my legs for oil. We weren't drilling oil in Afghanistan. Like, that's a whole nother conversation. But one of the comments that he commented about, he's like, he said that he was in CA, Civilian Affairs, or PsyOps guy, and the ODAs always deployed with a turret. So I responded to him, and I was like, hey, in 7th Group, it's different because usually we have a lot of native speakers on the team, or Spanish is not as hard as other languages, hence why you deploy with you don't usually deploy with an interpreter to South America. Mm-hmm. Just trying to engage. I just want to engage with my fans. Right? Never wrote me back. Never said anything like, hey, that makes sense. Other people that I commented on there of like, you know, I had mentioned something about trying to leverage USAID or other government entities in order to achieve our mission and like achieve effects. Do I believe in USAID and their mission? Not so much. Do I think cutting it or trying to cut the budget over there was a good thing? Maybe. I'm not in charge of the budget, but cutting, you know, being fiscally responsible is important. There was a lot of people commenting about, they're like, oh, once he mentioned USAID, he lost me, like, you know, leveraging them, they're bullshit. And I had to explain, like, they were one of the only entities that I was trying to use whatever resources I had. Were they great? No. Did they give me something? Sure. But like, that's, you know, once again, that no one like wanted to have a meaningful. You can't really have a meaningful conversation on a YouTube conversation like comment section, right? Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. Now in person, hopefully that'd be a little bit different.
Yeah.
And I think that's where those relationships are so important, because I think it is so easy to sit behind your computer or sit on your phone or whatever, and just comment and
just mother F somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you feel better about it.
Right.
I guess. Is weird. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if you actually do feel better about it.
I mean, I don't, but I think in a weird, like, psychological, people that probably have other issues going on that they feel like they've accomplished something. Maybe they feel like they're making progress, or they're succeeding at somewhere. They're probably lacking in progress, or what we would think is like progress or success in life, and like other means, you know, to be spending that much time and energy and emotion on a comment section or getting into an internet argument, right?
Right. Yeah. You start to feel validated.
Yeah.
You know,
it's the validation piece that they're probably looking for. They're looking for validation.
Right. And to me, where's the best way to get that validation? Probably through the close relationships you have with your family, with your friends. But I think you need to be reminded of how important that is, because I think it's really easy to let that kind of just slip away. You know, if you don't see people consistently, you don't make an effort, you can just fall out of touch with people. And that's okay. Like that happens. There's ebbs and flows of being in contact with people, but to know that relationships are important, that they are incredibly important for your mental health, your physical health even, and overall well-being, and just feeling like, you know, life is meaningful. I think that's important. And that's a big thing that we teach, you know, through the Positivity Project.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I love back to the Army Lacrosse Brotherhood, when I was up at Philly for the Green Beret Foundation, SEAL Foundation lacrosse game, just being able to reconnect with some of the guys that we played lacrosse with, being able to reconnect with some of the Navy guys that we played versus, was like meaningful. You know, I was never friends with the Loonies,
right?
But we played versus them all the time. You know, Steve Looney was like my antithesis. He was like my anti-Ben. He was their team midi, right? Like we were always lining up for the same ground ball, and like we would have slammed into each other if we could. But it was meaningful to see him, reconnect with him after all these years, meet his wife and kids, and see how he was doing. And you feel better. I don't know, you know, it's like that it's that internal intrinsic value or emotional piece to it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there's tons and tons of research on that. You know, there's this Harvard study of adult development that started in the 1930s, back when JFK was like a sophomore. So he was part of this study. And so it started in the 1930s, and it wanted to understand what makes people healthy, happy, resilient over the course of their lives. Yeah. And it had these men fill out surveys, Harvard sophomores. They filled out surveys, and a lot of them thought it was going to be fame, wealth, achievement, you know, that's what was going to lead to a life of satisfaction. And those things are important, right? You need a lot of those things. You need the baselines of those. But this study is still ongoing, and it expanded in the 1970s to include teenagers from some of Boston's poorest neighborhoods. It continues to exist today with spouses and children. And what they found is that close relationships are the best predictor of your health and your happiness over the course of your life. It's the quality of your relationships, not the quantity, the quality of your close relationships with other people. Yeah. Like, it's there. Like, you can feel it. Yeah. And also it's backed up by research. Yeah. I mean, that makes total sense. We were kind of talking about this yesterday with COVID and how we felt about COVID and the experiencing COVID. And for us, I'm sure some people, and I know people had horrible experiences during COVID. For us, COVID was amazing. Just being honest. And it was because we have such a close relationship, I feel like, between my wife and our kids, and every day we were just all together doing what we love doing, spending time with one another, because we were lucky enough to be together. And I saw other people that were freaking out and panicking because they couldn't go see their girlfriend, they couldn't do this, dealing around relationships. And I remember one night after reading some work emails and seeing that through the work emails, that there were some people panicking because they couldn't travel to wherever to see girlfriends or whoever was away from them, and just thinking, man, like, this guy that I'm reading about is a billionaire. He has many more zeros in his bank account than I probably ever will. But right now, I know I'm wealthier than this guy because of the relationships, because this is like what really matters. Like, I'm experiencing it. Once again, it's so simple. It's about who you know, the relationships that you have, the meaningful relationships that you have, where people will really go, you know, like when I got injured and you had to come up with me in Minnesota, right? What was the story that you were saying yesterday you told your boss? I got to go. You called me. I was at work at State Department. And I said, hey, I got to go. And that's it. I'll be back in a few days. I don't know when, but I'll be back in a few days. And that was it. And you and me hopped on a plane to Minnesota, and you had your surgery, and I stayed out there until Gina could get out there herself. Yeah. And that was it. It's about the relationships, right? That's what really matters in life, is the meaningful relationships. Nobody is on their deathbed thinking, oh man, I wish I spent one more day in the office. But it's being surrounded and knowing that you've been loved and like cared for by these people around you. That's like the real important thing in life. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think you need to be reminded of that. Yeah. You know, because it's easy to forget that. There's so much stuff. So many distractions, right? So many distractions. Yes, absolutely. And so you need to be reminded of that. Yeah. You know, it's doing what you love with the people you love. If you can do that, you're going to have a happy life. Yeah. So you definitely love what you do now.
how did you come to P2? Like, what was your transition like from the Army to where you are now?
Yeah, so did my 5 years in the Army, 2 deployments to Iraq during that time, 06 and then 08. And then I went to grad school. I went to the Fletcher School and got for international relations. And then I went into the State Department after that. So I was at the State Department for 2 years, a mix of DC and Jerusalem. I was over there for a few months. And it was a great experience to understand what that side looked like, because I worked with some State Department people in Iraq, and so wanted to continue to serve in some way and wanted to see how I could serve and, you know, make an impact on an even greater level, essentially, right, with all the work that we'd been doing. And that was a good experience. But, you know, Patty and I, my wife, we were talking at the time, like, do we want this international life? Because that was going to be the next step. It was going to be foreign service. And she had come over to visit me in Jerusalem, and it was a great experience there. But, you know, do we want to be all over the world, changing it out every 3 to 4 years, raising a family overseas, or do we want to be close to our family? And we made the decision that we wanted to be close to our family. So I was really looking for some way that I could continue to contribute to our country, some way to continue to serve and feel like I was making a difference for our country, but just here at home.
Yeah.
And so that's, you know, Mike and I started the Facebook page talking about character strengths and positive relationships. And then the school reached out. And then from there it was like, this is it. This is the way to continue to serve.
Yeah.
And so that was essentially the transition, you know, and then from there with Positivity Project, it's that step-by-step approach. Like, does this work? And you get the feedback from schools, what works, what doesn't. You know, I wasn't a K-12 educator, but we've now got a team of former K-12 educators, principals, teachers, et cetera. We've got a cadre of trainers out across the country who are district admins, superintendents, principals, who are going out there and leading training for us. So that's been that transition. Like, how do we make this as impactful as possible to as many kids as possible?
Besides just working with schools, are you guys doing like weekly training or like speaking engagements or like something else besides just coming to an elementary school? Not
really. I mean, it's really about the systems, you know, rather than the seminars.
So you're leveraging like the systems that are in place and kind of tapping into that.
Yep. And we're building it out. So we have an impact equation, and it's I equals EN. It's kind of like the force equation, you know, in physics. But our impact is equal to the effectiveness in each partner school multiplied by the number of schools. And that's what we want to do. So it's not about me or anyone else going out and giving a speech. Like, we do training to help them implement better, but it's really about the teachers and the principals in the schools implementing consistently so that the kids understand what is gratitude, what is perseverance.
Yeah.
And they use it in their own lives and not just in school. And that's great because you build a better school culture, there's better attendance, behavior improves, academics eventually improve as well.
Yeah.
But what about for the rest of their lives? You know, can kids use these character strengths outside of school, at sports, just hanging out with friends, and then throughout their lives? I mean, bravery's never ending, perseverance never ending, integrity, right? All these things are lifelong learning, and lifelong experiences. It never ends.
Yeah.
And so that's what we want to be able to teach as many kids as possible.
It feels like in our time right now, at this point on the timeline, we need a little more Positivity Project in everyone's lives.
Yeah. I mean, that's how we feel too. And that's why we're, you know, pushing hard to expand this to as many schools as we possibly can. And we're getting it out to parents. Our P2 for Families is free. So it's publicly available on our website, where parents can teach a lesson a week on their own to their kids. And we really encourage parents, whether they're at partner schools or not, to use this, to talk to their kids about character and do it in a really easy way. You know, for parents, it's one quote, one short video, 3 questions as conversation starters.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, it's not like you talked about. It's not, okay, you're going to jump in the ice bath. It's going to be dark. You're going to build, you know, your perseverance right now all at one time. It's those short little conversations, you know, when you're driving to practice with Peyton, like, hey man, like I know your toe was hurting, but you really pushed through. That was impressive.
Yeah.
Or you were a really good teammate today. Those small conversations where it's just part of his vocabulary and how he sees the world.
Yeah. The consistency, like you said, is so important.
Yeah.
It's important with everything. Weightlifting or working out in the gym, language learning, any sort of skill, right? And it's
Absolutely.
just, it really is another skill set that you're just sharpening when it comes to these character traits. They're all skill sets in a way, and just being better at it.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think there's applications. We're focused on K-12 schools right now, but there's a huge application from a sports standpoint. There's a baseball coach out in Fresno. He won a College World Series as one of the coaches at Fresno State, and now he's at the high school level. And he's been using Positivity Project on his own and just taking our one-page character cards, which is essentially a summary of a chapter of the 800-page book. He takes those and he's got his baseball players. They take it very seriously out in California. And he's got his baseball players, coming in for 30 minutes and he's talking to them about character and these different character strengths. He said it made a huge difference on his team, and he's able to talk to these kids about practicing with integrity.
Was he the one that said something about his wife being right and wrong?
Yeah. At our national conference this year, he came to present on how he applied Positivity Project to his team. And he said, hey, is anyone in here ever, had to tell your wife, I'm wrong, you were right? And they're like, yeah. And he's like, have any of you ever had to do that in front of 50 people while giving an hour-long presentation? Because his wife's a district admin and she was there and she'd been telling him about it for years. And he's like, whatever, it's positive. Okay, got it. Positive, think positive. And then he actually started digging into it. And he's like, oh, this is great.
Yeah.
And then he used it with his players. And he said it's been a total game changer from their performance also.
Yeah.
He's like, our team made it to the county championship. We had no place being at that county championship. It was the character we had on the team
and mindset
that got us there.
Right.
Yes.
And I think that's the important thing that people know about the Positivity Project. At first glance, it can be seen like, all right, what's this kind of like huggy, make every kid feel good bullshit? It's actually really not that at all.
No, it's not that at all. And it's understandable. Our name is the Positivity Project, right? So you think positivity, it's all about sunshine and rainbows and, all that stuff. But what it really is, it's about being positive even in the difficult circumstances, right? And all these character strengths, like I was saying, they can all help us overcome life's inevitable adversities. And so do our relationships, and there's strengths that you don't think of, in terms of being more resilient, like humor. You probably wouldn't generally think of humor as one of those strengths, but I don't know, you tell me.
I was just talking about this on another podcast, Sam Finney, and the podcast that he does, the Army lacrosse guy, the guy from Savannah, right? And talking about one of the things I mentioned was how important humor is in being resilient. And I just remember I have fond memories of, being like tough circumstances, but still being able to laugh at it. And it just kind of changes your perspective on it. And the biggest example that I gave him in my mind was I remember during mountain phase of Ranger School, you're like at the midpoint of Ranger School. It's cold. I was a Winter Ranger. So it's cold. It was nighttime. We were getting rained on and it's like 40 degrees, like on that verge of like kind of snow rain, and you're just miserable. And I remember just standing in formation or like line, our Ranger platoon, and the RIs are about to do like change out, or it's that point of the night where we already did the mission, which was a horrible disaster, and they're already pissed off, because we fucked up and they're getting rained on too. And you're like, this is going to be a miserable night. We're probably just going to walk all night, or if they put us down for a patrol base, they're just going to mess with us all night. We're not getting any sleep. Maybe we'll eat. There's no sleep tonight. And you're just like, you're in this like self-licking ice cream cone of pain of like, we're not going to get any sleep. I'm cold. I'm wet. I'm hungry. This rucksack on my back hurts. I don't know what's going on. I'm cold. I'm wet. I'm hungry. This hurts. I don't know what's going on. And I remember looking over at my Ranger buddy, who was this kid from Ranger Regiment, big guy, and he had this like shit-eating grin on his face. And in my mind, I was like, what the fuck is so funny? Like, how could you be laughing at this moment right now? And he just looked up and he's like, you just have to enjoy the suck, man. He's like, this is it. He's like, it's not getting any better. Just laugh about it. And I was like, you're right. Like, it just like clicked. I was like, I started to laugh at him and I was like, you're right, man. I was like, this sucks. You know, all we could do is just laugh about how much this sucks. One day this will be a story that like we tell people, right? Because we endured this horrible event, or just that, a night that you thought that would never end, of just uncomfortableness and hunger and not knowing anything, and it just sucks. It was like the perfect Ranger School night that you could picture, right? And it was miserable, but just being able to laugh at it like that, like a flip of a switch, it changed my entire perspective on it.
Absolutely. And it helped you be more resilient in that situation.
Yeah.
And that's it. And those are the kinds of things that we want to teach kids, because obviously it's great if you experience it, right? And that experience is like more on the extreme for most people.
Yeah.
But to even just know that is true, that humor can help you get through those tough situations, I think is very important.
Totally. When I had my little mishaps during my bone lengthening surgery and I ended up breaking the bone and I had to call you, I mean, I knew, like, when it happened, I was like, oh shit, something bad just happened. But then I went into action to solve the problem, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, not that I was laughing about it or had humor, but I, in a resilient way, knew, all right, there's a problem. Mm-hmm. Now we need to get to fixing the problem. And I think within 24 hours, you and I were on a private jet that I arranged for us to fly up to Minnesota and have this like medical emergency surgery done to fix and correct the bone lengthening process that I had kind of just reset myself on.
Yeah.
Remember the time when I was in the hotel, we were in the hotel room and I was turning my broken femur with a wrench?
Yes. And we were talking, on the trip out about like guys who are very tough, guys who are hard. And you're like, hey, JB, I think this is pretty hard.
Yeah. As I'm cranking the bolts that are attached into my femur and like stretching out my bone.
Yes. And I was like, I think so. I think you might be the winner in this competition.
Yeah. But you're right. Humor is really important. If you can't laugh at yourself and, sometimes take yourself not as serious, it opens up the ability to have conversations with people that you may not agree with.
Right.
It's humility. You create a common, humor is a common bond, two people being able to laugh at kind of the same circumstance. It's funny, right?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's what helped us get through West Point also.
Absolutely.
There's a lot of times where it didn't feel that funny. And then, someone on the team would crack a joke and, it'd lighten the mood. It'd help us transcend that difficult moment.
Yeah. Like I remember, during like conditioning practices and everyone's like, you're 45 minutes into some sort of conditioning practice where you're just running like 100 after 100 after 100 after 100. But listening to, one of the older guys on the team crack a joke at the strength and conditioning coach and tell him to go fuck himself or something, it's like, it makes everyone laugh and giggle, and the coach knows he's like, has humor about it too.
Right.
We're probably going to run another 200 or 300s, but it was worth the joke and the experience.
That's right. It was worth it. Yeah. Because we all laughed and, just let him know that he wasn't going to break us.
Exactly.
Yeah. And that was it, and I think, and that's where all these different character strengths come in. So that's humor. Creativity is another one. Like, your example of the doctor saying, I'm sorry, you're never going to walk again. And you said, well, that's not acceptable.
Yeah.
And then you created a solution. Like creativity, we define as finding new and original ways to do things. That's exactly what you did.
Yeah.
That's a character strength. It's creativity.
Yeah.
And so teaching kids like what these things are and that they are in you and that you're capable of doing these things, I think is incredibly important.
No, 100%. I mean, one of your coworkers said, you were telling me the story where he's like, man, people suck. Yeah. And you go, yeah, but we make them suck less. Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So, like I said, I want that t-shirt. I want the Next Positivity Project t-shirt to say we make people suck less.
Sometimes he's not the most optimistic.
Yeah.
And that's all right. That's all right. Everyone's got different strengths.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It's some highs and lows of what makes people tick in their strengths. What Well, Jeff, where can people find more about P2, Positivity Project, and about it, maybe how they can bring it to their school or for their kids or bring it home?
So posproject.org is our website. You go to our website or you just put in Google Positivity Project. We should pop right up there. And then we have a contact form. Reach out. Someone from our team or me will be right in touch with you. P2 for Families is on there also. We got a drop-down menu under resources that says P2 for Families. It's both English and Spanish. So take a look at that, and please reach out, bring it to your school, use it on your own as a parent. You know, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I'm definitely going to use a lot of these things that we talked about too with, you know, my kids and the soccer team and trying to pass it along, because I think there's so much useful, like just simple things that can come out of it.
Yeah, and that's what it's here for. It's a tool for people to use. You know, obviously, like, you're the exemplification of so many of these character strengths, and you've got your own personal stories. But if we can also just find easy ways for you to like tap into some resources or look at it from like a slightly different perspective to be able to meet the needs of your kids or other players on the team or even the coaches or whatever, that's what we want to be able to do.
Yeah, no, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, dude.
Benny.
It's been great.
Thanks. It was awesome.